welcome back to another episode of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Paulicki. He's Jacob Liberta. We're a Minnesota sports podcast, so if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so, especially if you're a Minnesota sports fan. And for the first time in a really long time, we're going to be talking some Minnesota Twins today because the lockout's finally over. The Twins are making tons of moves, and the regular season is fast approaching. We're less than a month out from opening day. They're going to have a pretty accelerated spring training. So let's get right into it. Twins have been making ton of trades, which is extremely uncharacteristic for them. Kind of started with them trading Mitch Garver for what's this guy's name?
Isaiah Kiner-Falefa.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Shortstop from the Rangers. They quickly flip him around to the Yankees, sending him and Josh Donaldson along with prospect catcher Ben Rortvedt to get Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela. And they've also traded for Sonny Gray, a pitcher from the Reds. So, and it kind of sounds like, because they've cleared a bunch of money out here after getting rid of Donaldson, it kind of sounds like there's even more moves to come. So what do you make of all the moves they've made so far, and which one has probably been your favorite, would you say?
Yeah, this has been an interesting sequence of events, really. I think the first eyebrow raiser was really the first move when we traded Garver to Texas and got back in return that aforementioned shortstop ended up flipping to the Yankees. And then we had picked up another double-A pitching prospect to throw in our minor league system that already is rich with them. So that's pretty exciting. And then getting Sonny Gray, a true top of the rotation guy for our first round pick last year, I thought that looked like it was good value too, especially for a team that after that seems like we're indicating towards trying to win now. And then the biggest one, I think my favorite one, but also I guess it's my favorite because it's fun, just because we flipped Donaldson along with the shortstop we got, Kiner-Falefa, and then Ben Rortvedt, who has had some major league time, but has never really shown any promise at the plate, but it's certainly a defensive upgrade for the Yankees that they needed over a guy like Gary Sanchez, who provides nothing for you defensively.
Right.
But realistically, I think that one's probably the one that stands out the most, just because it is with the Yankees. That's our bitter, or I wouldn't say our rival, because I don't want to call it necessarily a rivalry, but a team Minnesota fans probably dislike more than anybody besides the Green Bay Packers, I would dare to say. But I guess I'm pretty excited, and it's just a weird thing to me I think Urshela is going to be great. A solid third baseman that's going to play for you every day. But I think the one that really stands out the most to me is Gary Sanchez. I can't believe he's a Minnesota Twin. Seeing the first few pictures of him at camp, it just kind of blew my mind a little bit. So it's been fun. I've never seen the Twins make this many trades in such rapid succession. So I'm enjoying it while this is happening, just because it's keeping the Twins in the news league-wide.
Exactly. That's probably the most exciting part of it, is they're finally just not boring in the offseason. They're actually making moves. Whether these moves turn out to be good or not, I guess remains to be seen. But yeah, the Gary Sanchez one is super interesting just because for a while there, he was just slugging balls for the Yankees. I mean, obviously, he's a very streaky hitter. He's very similar to Miguel Sano in the fact that he strikes out a ton, but he can also crush the ball. And he's not exactly the best defensive player in the world, especially at catcher. That's kind of tough to handle too. So if he ends up DHing quite a bit and you have him and Sano in the lineup at the same time, I think that's going to be tough for fans to swallow.
Yes.
But we'll see. Maybe he won't even be on the team come opening day because they still have some moves they're probably going to make here. I think the Sonny Gray trade is probably my favorite, just because they finally got a solidified starting pitcher in here. He's gonna be our opening day starter unless another surprise trade happens of some sort here. But I'm very happy about that transaction. I think giving up a first rounder and Chase Petty, who's years away from getting to the major leagues, heavy throwing right-hander, but I mean, it's impossible to know if he's going to turn out or not. Some people think he may be a reliever and not a starter, so that kind of plays into it as well. But I'm happy about it because they have no starting pitching, and they still need to probably get another starter or two before the season starts. So now you have Sonny Gray, you have Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober's in the mix, Dylan Bundy, who they signed before the lockout. They still could use another pitcher, though. Michael Pineda's out there, Johnny Cueto, Zach Greinke, they're rumored to have interest in, even though he's, in his upper 30s, nearing the end of his career. So it'd be nice to see them maybe potentially make a trade for one of these Oakland pitchers that they've been rumored to be discussing too. But I think the biggest rumor that's going on right now is the whole Trevor Story thing, that now that they've cleared out all this money, they can afford to take on another big contract. What are your thoughts on potentially bringing in Trevor Story and solidifying the shortstop position for years to come?
Yeah, Trevor Story's a marquee player, and I think this would be a really a fun signing, another one of these fun moves that I like just because it's a splash. But at the same time, it does concern me with a guy coming from Colorado. I know that's always been the history. Whether it's not just him, but it's just any player that you acquire from Colorado, you always got to take into account like the environment he's playing in,
Yep.
and the fact that Colorado is one of the most hitter friendly places in the league. So realistically, when you look at his splits, especially last season, they look pretty drastic home and away, which is scary. But then you look over the course of his career, it's a lot more even, so that makes you feel a little bit better. But at the
Yep.
same time, I don't know how much I really want to sign a big time shortstop like this too, because Austin Martin and Royce Lewis might be very fine players, and I think they're on the cusp of the major leagues. Obviously, Austin Martin's closer because he's just been healthy, and Royce Lewis has come back from that ACL tear last spring training, and he hasn't really played baseball much in the last 2 years. So
Hmm.
realistically, he might be a little bit farther away, but still, I think we have some promising prospects. But again, they are just prospects. So maybe if you feel internally that they might not be the future, then you might have to. Maybe it is a good thing that they're making Story really the move here. At least it appears to be that way. And I am curious to see how many years they give him. I don't know if maybe the difference between him and like a Correa or something is just the length in contract, and
Yep.
I don't know. There's a lot to be considered here. So I think it would be fun, but I would be cautious at the same time. But again, this is another anti-Twins move, which would be kind of fun.
Right. And I think Correa would be my preferred choice. And
Yeah.
you could talk me into signing him to a long-term deal because he's a for sure shortstop. And it'd be kind of cool to have him to Buxton, who are the top two picks in their draft, to have them on the same team, similar to Cat and D'Lo with the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
But I'd be good with Trevor Story too. Obviously I don't think he's quite as good as Carlos Correa, and you're right. Hitting in a Colorado ballpark does make me a little weary, but I mean he's a pretty good defensive shortstop, which is
Mhm.
critical too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, what do you think the expectation kind of is now? I mean, obviously they're not done constructing this roster, but I think it was kind of assumed by a lot of people they were maybe entering another rebuild, considering the trades they did last season, getting rid of Barrios and Nelson Cruz and acquiring some prospects. But now, I mean, it kind of seems like they're making some win now moves so they can potentially compete for an expanded playoff field this year. So, what are your thoughts on that? And do you think this is a correct move for them to approach it this way?
Yeah, I think it's hard to throw down like a definitive win total window for this team right now, just because I think there still are other moves on the horizon, and this certainly isn't the roster we're bringing into opening day. So I think gotta wait on that a little bit. But as far as the idea of maybe being in a rebuild or trying to win now, we're clearly in a win now mode with the moves that we've made and the ones that I think are coming. So
Yep.
realistically, I think the expectation should be playoffs then, and or at the bare minimum playoffs really. And I don't
Hmm.
know about I'd say contending for the division. I wouldn't necessarily expect them to win it because the White Sox are a very good squad,
Yep.
but I would like to at least get in the playoffs and break that 18 game losing streak. That would be a nice monkey off the back. So I think that's probably the goal. But at the same time, it's all in the eye of the beholder right now, and it's I think you could go both ways here, but now that we've made the trades we have, it feels like we're going certainly in the win now mode, which I'm all right with it, I think, just because we're not that far off from where we were 2 years ago, where we won back-to-back division titles. And I know we certainly had a clunker of a year last year, but I think we're shaking it up enough to the point where hopefully guys don't play as bad as they did last year, and we also get some really new juice from these new guys that'll be contributing to the lineup. And
Hmm.
hopefully we'll continue adding on to this rotation where they pitch a lot better than they did last year. Because obviously our pitching was horrendous, top to bottom, starting rotation, the bullpen, it was bad. So
Yep.
yeah, I would like to think there's nowhere to go but up there. So that would certainly help the cause too. But if I had to guess right now what kind of win totals we're looking at, I'd probably shoot for about 85. I'd say realistically probably we're in the 80 to 85 win window, but again, that still needs some rounding out to this roster.
Which, for reference, would put us second in the division last season. That's just
Yeah,
kind of how rough the rest of our division is right now.
yeah,
Um, in my mind, in baseball, you can kind of shortcut a rebuild as long as you're not trading away your prospects because it's not like you need to tank for the draft.
hmm
Um, because prospects take so long to develop anyways. So the Twins kind of threw in the towel last season, which they should have because they were horrible.
yeah,
And they got a ton of good prospects in return for Barrios and Nelson Cruz.
hmm
You still have those guys. So you still have some really good pitching prospects. You still have some stud prospects in Austin Martin and Royce Lewis down in the minors. And as long as you don't trade those guys away for, some sort of win now move in the coming month here, you're still going to have those guys. So at the same time, yeah, you traded away a Chase Petty who's probably 3 to 4 years out from maybe even being in the major leagues. I don't care about that. Like that's so far out right now that it doesn't matter to me. So I kind of appreciate some of these moves they're making. And yeah, if they sign like a Trevor Story to a long-term deal, then you probably do have to get rid of one of Martin or Lewis, but then you can use that to get a pitcher, So like
That's
you
true.
can kind of play the game a little bit here, and there's still enough of a fielding unit and a batting lineup that I think the Twins offense can still be pretty decent. It's not as potent as it was a couple years ago, and obviously losing Donaldson's going to hurt that too. But I think I think 80 wins is probably about right for this team. I'd say maybe just a little below too, but I mean they won 73 games last year. They were pretty bad, so 80 seems to be about the right number to me. And yeah, I think I'm really interested to see what they do from here on out because they got some money to spend. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We're drastically below the payroll level right now, and with no marquee pitchers remaining on the market, it seems like all signs are pointing towards the other positions that are at the top, and that's the shortstops with Correa and Story. So that seems like the move, unless we're just drastically cutting back. But that wouldn't really make any sense with the trades we made. Like for instance, I mean, plain and simple, Sonny Gray, a 32-year-old pitcher for our first round pick last year, that wouldn't really make sense if we're planning for the
Right.
future. So I I think it's coming. It's just that I'm curious if they really will get Story in here to commit to a deal and see where we go from there and how this lineup really stacks up opening day. I'd be really curious to see what Rocco rolls out there.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting to see, and we'll for sure have to hop on and do more videos here too once those moves come across because it's kind of exciting to talk some Twins baseball again. It's not the
Yeah.
boring, stale team that we thought it might be going into this season. So
And we're finally out
um,
of like the 4 month lockout or whatever it was.
yes, exactly. So that'll do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a like, especially if you're a Twins fan and you're pumped for the upcoming season. Give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram and leave your comments below. What are your thoughts on the moves the Twins have made so far? Uh, what do you expect them to do from here on out? Do you think they'll get Trevor Story? Do you think they'll maybe make a play for Carlos Correa? Do you think they'll trade for any more starting pitching? So let us know your thoughts below. And until next time,